everyone, my name is KLaRiv RP. I'm the school counselor at Huffaker Elementary School. I've been a school counselor in Washoe County School District for about 10 years, and Becky has asked me to make a quick video telling you about how I use restorative practices in my day, and specifically once harm has occurred at school. I'm going to try to stay focused on that, but if I go into preventatively how important restorative practices are, I apologize. It's just I believe in them so much, and they really do so much as far as preventing problems at school. So let me just start with how I use them. I'm going to talk about how I use them with individual students, like 2 or more, and then I can go into a little bit how I would use them in circles, small group counseling, and then how we are implementing them with the staff as we try and get ready to roll out restorative practices at Huffaker. So first, individually, and when I say individually, I mean 2 or more students. I will use them for conflict resolution, which I do often because a teacher, parent, or student has come to me saying that they're in a conflict that's gotten to be more than they can handle on their own. I'll get the students together to talk out the problem and come up with solutions to solve the problem. And then most importantly, think about what they did to end up here and what they could do differently. And then bullying, if there's bullying and real bullying and there's been an investigation and then both parties feel safe enough and agree to coming together and hearing how actions have impacted each other and what they can do differently. I'll work with students that have been involved in bullying scenarios, and then behavior. If there's a student, for example, we just had a student in 4th grade who came back after a break refusing to do any work in the classroom, but more difficult is that while he's not doing any work, he's now making a lot of noise and doing things with his body to occupy his time and get attention, or we're not sure why he's doing it, but he's creating a very disruptive classroom environment. So having students, a handful of students that I know could handle respectfully sharing their feelings and talking with the student about how his behavior is impacting them and their learning was a great way to do a restorative circle to help that student with the behavior that he's displaying in the classroom. It's not just affecting him and his learning, it's affecting the whole classroom. And the teacher was involved too, because it's affecting her ability to teach. And so it was important for him to hear. I don't think he realized just how much he was upsetting his peers and his friends and the teacher. The next is circles. So circles I'll use in a lot of different ways. I'll use them to get to know each other at the beginning of the year. And when I go in to do classroom guidance, I do like a thing where we'll get into a circle and we'll pass the yarn and we'll make a spider web, and it'll kind of be a visual to display how connected they all are in this classroom as the year begins. And I'll have them tell one thing they'd like us to know, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be anything deep. In fact, I encourage them to just tell us anything we should know about you or you'd like us to know about you in one sentence. You have to keep it short. Give them that direction to keep it short. I'll use a circle if there has been trauma in the classroom. Like, let's say there's been a fight between 2 students in a classroom and maybe the other classmates have witnessed it, and that's a big deal in the classroom. If there's been some kind of trauma, like for instance, I had one situation where a student brought a toy gun to school, and a lot of the kids in the classroom knew about it, and nobody was saying anything for a while, and some students were scared. So we got into a circle together and talked about what happened, or shared, went around, everybody share a feeling that they're feeling, one sentence to describe your feeling. And then we sent the talking ball back and forth about what we should do. What should we do when that happens next time? So again, it's like the whole classroom is a community. That's the vibe that circles create, and we're going to solve problems and work through things together and hear everyone's voice. I think it's healing. I think it bonds people, students together, and I've seen unbelievable growth and differences in classrooms that utilize circles on a regular basis. Um, I'll also use circles. Like I said, I'll use them during guidance lessons, like I do one in the beginning of the year, but I might do circles in a guidance lesson later to see if everybody, what they picked up from the lesson. Like maybe I'll just have everybody circle up after the lesson and say one word that you take away from this lesson to kind of get a feel on, did the lesson sink in, or we kind of miss it? So where I've seen circles be most effective is when a teacher is utilizing them from the beginning of the year, because it takes a little while for a classroom of 20 to 30 kids to just really get used to the process of sitting and doing. So as much as I love to come in and do them, if, like I said, if there's a trauma, if I'm teaching guidance, but I've seen them be most effective if it's just a daily practice, because the kids really get used to it, they really love it, and it really bonds them and creates that classroom community. And then I've seen teachers, problem solve in circles. They create community, like I said, they create empathy as they get to know each other. But then when something does come up, they circle up, and then they can work through it really nicely and easily. Small group counseling is another place where I use restorative circles. So that might be like practicing social skills that we learn in counseling, that we practice them. I've also found in circles, like I said, in the classroom, when we get together in circles and share our feelings or share our experiences, students that were maybe having trouble getting along or having conflict over and over again, once they learn a bit more about each other, it's like it bonds them in a way that you don't get kind of naturally with the younger students. You have to kind of prompt these conversations so they can make these connections. Oh, I didn't know that you enjoyed this hobby, or I didn't know that your parents had been divorced, mine have been too. Or I didn't know that you felt also scared or left out. But in the circles, it gives them an opportunity to really hear these different parts of students. And when you hear these and like see each other more human, for lack of a better word, it's harder to be mean to each other or fight with each other, because there's a deeper bond there. And of course, like I said before, working through conflict. So a lot of times I'll have some girl groups that are going through like they have tendencies to get into conflict and not use the best social skills to solve them. So we'll practice that in a group setting or in a circle. Another circle is a great way to share feelings, to prompt them to share what they're feeling right now, or let's go around the circle and share how everybody is feeling at the end of this, or from this conversation, or from what we just practiced. It's a great way to check in, like just take the temperature when we first get together in a group. And then lastly, staff meetings. So Huffaker is just going to start rolling out restorative practices, and rather than just saying, hey, everybody, our admin has decided that it would be great to just start doing some circles before we actually say next year, whenever they decide that we're gonna start rolling out with circles school-wide, or restorative practice school-wide. We're just starting to start staff meetings with a circle. Like maybe it'll be a clearing where we go around, and if somebody wants to say, because clearings were something that my principal started staff meetings with, but it was still at our tables. But now, like, let's just get into a circle, because it changes the vibe, for lack of a better word, when we're all sitting at our separate tables, laptops, pens, papers. When we move all that stuff aside and get into a circle where we're all looking at each other, and now we're going to share our clearings and really no distractions and really hear each other. So I actually just did one of these last week for the first time, versus the other way we did clearings, and it felt really, really nice. And I think more people actually took the opportunity to speak because it does feel nice. So we had more people doing clearings, but it's a nice way to go around and do celebrations. Again, take the temperature, like everybody, go around and say what you're feeling right now. It's a great way to make connections. It's also a great icebreaker if you have something really fun to say, like if you were a superhero, what would be your superpower, or something like that. And you can find those everywhere. I know Becky will happily give them all to you. So those are a few ways that we use, or that I've seen used and have seen restorative practices used. And I could go on for much longer because I think there's just so much benefit that comes from working with students in this way, restoratively. And I think the biggest one, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, is that it is hard for our young students to communicate. We always say, use your words. That is something that needs to be practiced, to use our words when we're angry, upset, sad, mad, scared. It's very hard to communicate those feelings. A lot of students go straight to anger, or they can't say it face to face. But when we get them together, they have an adult that can support, and they can practice talking to each other in these difficult moments. And that's what needs to happen, is that's where they need to practice to get this. And that's what restorative circle is. It's practicing, it's communicating big feelings in a safe environment with an adult. So thank you very much. I hope this was helpful.